So I think even before the pandemic, there's been more attention on understanding the impact of media and just more pressure, I think, on the CMO to be able to show accountability around performance associated with that media, whether that's driving brand outcomes or driving more kind of bottom line outcomes. With the pandemic, I think there's just more, you know, in some cases, budgets were getting hiked up. In other cases, budgets were being reduced. Certainly for those where budgets are being reduced, they're looking for places where they can get efficiency, and the channels and areas where they can show accountability for media.
So where does performance measurement stand in terms of the technology of it that either you guys are doing and what you're doing with vendors and what you'd like to see the industry provide?
Yeah, so I think, it's the big topic right now is obviously around cookie-less future, and with the increased demands for understanding performance and outcomes, I think our clients are looking for what's next, where should they be investing, realizing that maybe some of the traditional ways that performance has been measured, particularly online, that's relied on cookies and devices, is going to change. It's been already changing, and so the question I always get is kind of what's next, and where should those investments be placed, and how should marketing frameworks and measurement frameworks be updated based on what's coming.
So tell us about the tools around outcomes and kind of the specific, KPIs vary, but where do things stand in terms of understanding outcomes, in a more granular way?
Yeah, so specifically some of the things that we see shifting. So with the privacy regulation and so forth, as well as just changes that browsers and technology companies are making, it's really just impacting our ability to use third-party cookies and devices to track individuals as far as what they're seeing in different types of media, in digital media, and then the outcomes that they're taking downstream. And that's kind of at the heart of I think what we're all trying to understand from a performance standpoint. I think what I'm saying is three things kind of emerging to kind of take the place of some of the things that are going away. So the first thing is, look, it's more of the same, but what I would say is like qualified clicks. So view type behavior in digital is getting harder to track. And so I see a movement towards more understanding click through, but not just click through to site, but click through to, to qualified engagement, because I think we've had problems in the past where click through was over relied on and kind of led to false results. The second area that I see is really publisher specific solutions. So publishers have alternative IDs oftentimes. So whether we're talking about the big guys like Google and Facebook, where they have logged in universes and ways of tracking who's seeing what ads and what outcomes they're taking. And so certainly using the measurement solutions within publisher and retail platforms, but even smaller publishers, I think, are looking for ways to create and stand up those solutions for measurement. So I think that will become more important for understanding the connection to outcomes. And then the third thing is modeling, right? So modeling has been around for a long time, whether it's media mix modeling for cross-channel measurement, but what I see is modeling becoming more and more granular to try to understand not only, how are we driving high-level impacts across media, but also modeling more specific actions, even, how are certain campaigns driving downstream engagement on a website, for example.
And finally, the question of identity, which is a big part of the conversation now. And of course, Merkel has been a pioneer in that for some years. How does the identity graph, the identity solution, fit into understanding outcomes?
So identity is really at the heart of the discussion around the future of measurement and outcomes. Historically, as I mentioned before, it's been cookies, third-party cookie IDs and device IDs that have been heavily relied on to be able to understand the connection between ad exposure and in digital channels back to outcomes. What I see emerging is a couple of things. Number one, alternative source of identity that are much more persistent, but also allow for more consent. So whether it's industry standards such as the UID 2.0, which is centered around email address and opt-ins, or in the case of Mercury, and our solution, we're focused really on person-based identity overall, as a way to, whether that's connected to email, a physical address, a phone number, but much more persistent than a third-party cookie or device ID, with the proper permissioning and so forth around that. And I think the big question is, how do you scale that? How do you build the connections between that identity and publishers? And that's an area that we're spending a lot of time on, frankly, is reconnecting IDs using much more persistent identity to publishers so that we can understand who's seeing ads, who's taking actions, conversion actions, and ultimately measure the effectiveness of our media.